Welcome to Taiwan Report News Brief, news and analysis from Taiwan. I'm Donovan Smith. Up today on the show, a poll suggests that Han Kuo-yu is recalled toast. Johnny Chiang threatens crackdown on party list legislators, and pretty much everyone knows who that's targeting. And 3Q gets cranky with China. All the news reports today are from the Taipei Times. Up first, we've got a lot of coronavirus news here that's kind of important, so let's get started. All right, the headline is Virus Outbreak, Large Events Should Be Halted, CECC says. The Central Epidemic Command Center yesterday recommended that indoor events of more than 100 people and outdoor events with more than 500 people should be canceled, as 19 new imported cases of COVID-19 were announced, bringing the total number in Taiwan to 235. The center recommends that from now, indoor events of more than 100 people and outdoor events with more than 500 people should be suspended to reduce the risk of COVID-19 community transmission. Event organizers should refer to 6 indicators listed in the response guidelines for public gatherings, issued by the center on March 5th, and evaluate the risks if they are still considering holding events. The 6 indicators are if information about the participants can be obtained beforehand, air ventilation at the event's venue, the distance between participants, whether venue seating is fixed or mobile, the duration of the event, and whether proper hand hygiene can be implemented and masks can be worn by participants. When asked if weddings can still be held, I say, of course you can get married, because it is only 2 people, Chen Shizhong said. However, if you want to hold a large and crowded wedding ceremony, then we do not recommend it at this time. Only soft policies advising people to take extra precautionary measures have been implemented in preparation for the possibility that COVID-19 situation worsens, and hard policies have to be enacted, he said. All right, now also, Chen Songyan said 101 nightclubs, bars, and karaoke clubs nationwide have been temporarily closed. 91 did so voluntarily, and 10 were ordered by the Taichung city government to shut. All right, Zhonghua Telecom working alone on tracking system agency. Well, it turns out that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered that they're going to use invasive technology to track the whereabouts of people infected with COVID-19 and those with whom they come in contact. But he didn't specify the nature of the technology, but the media reports later identified the technology as cell phone tracking. And the technology was tested in Taiwan, apparently with great success. And Israel is one of the only countries with the ability, and with this ability, and we will use it. Now, this was clarified as basically saying that this is Zhonghua Telecom's bag and nobody else's. However, here is something that I found interesting. Regarding concerns that the use of the platform could constitute an invasion of privacy of people placed in home isolation or quarantine, the Commission said that the Communicable Disease Control Act and the Special Act on COVID-19 Prevention, Relief, and Restoration both give the Central Epidemic Command Center clear authorization to enforce any disease prevent measures it deems necessary. I'm going to assume they meant prevention measures there. Use of the platform should not infringe on people's privacy, it added. Okay, well then it goes on to tell you exactly how they infringe on people's privacy. Officials from the Executive Yuan's Department of Cybersecurity, the Centers for Disease Control, and the NCC first made plans for the system. Zhonghua Telecom was entrusted with the task of developing and launching the system on February 1, the NCC said. The system functions, of which have been continuously optimized, has been used to track the subscribers of the nation's 5 telecoms who are asked to undergo home isolation or quarantine, it said. First, the CDC compiles a list of people who need to be placed in home isolation or quarantine following close contact with COVID-19 patients or those who have returned from high-risk countries or areas. The list is double-checked by local health and civil affairs departments, which ascertain whether the people can be reached at the cell phone and addresses they provide. The people's cell phone numbers are then sent to the telecoms, which regularly report on the associated devices' locations, which are derived from smartphones smartphone GPS data and triangulation of base station data. If an isolated or quarantined person leaves their home, an alarm is triggered on the platform and their service provider sends a warning message to the person as well as to local police, health, and civil affairs agencies. So, now there may be a very good argument for why this should be enacted as a disease prevention measure, but to say that it doesn't impinge on people's privacy is more than a little disingenuous. Okay, going on, Ministry allocates 400 million NT to help schools. Ministry of Education has allocated 400 million to help affected universities. The funds are to be used to support schools that have had to introduce flexible tuition and flexible learning options for overseas students who are unable to return to their schools in Taiwan, and to help schools purchase disease prevention supplies such as masks and thermometers, the ministry said in a statement. Okay. Now this is a big one here. Virus outbreak. Cabinet unveils financial aid measures. Now, this is big, very big. The Executive Yuan yesterday unveiled its latest policies to provide financial aid to people and companies affected by COVID-19. People affected can apply to postpone paying income taxes for 1 year or pay in installments of up to 36 months. The Minister of Without Portfolio, that's an interesting surname. Kong Ming Shin. Anyway, I've never seen that surname before. The Ministry of Finance will also issue tax rebates sooner than in previous years. State-owned banks are to roll back interest rates for people who've taken out loans. Other measures other measures for affected people include a grace period for late telecommunications bills for up to 6 months, during which they would continue to receive service. So you can skip paying your phone bill for a while. Households that include seniors or minors with disabilities would have their subsidies increased by 1,500 NT for 3 months, which is expected to benefit about 1 million people. Small stores that are exempt from issuing receipts would receive tax discounts of up to 100%, while those that issue receipts would be allowed to postpone paying business tax for 1 year or pay it in installments of up to 36 months. The central bank is prepared to offer loans totaling 200 billion to small and medium-sized enterprises. And for these loans, each application can secure up to 2 million, 90% of which would be guaranteed by the central government with an interest rate of no more than 1%. Adding that banks would provide loans of more than 2 million can request collateral but not impose interest rates of more than 1.5%. As the tourism and hotel industries have been hardest hit, there's a bunch of the bonuses they're going to give them, subsidies. Employers in those two industries whose revenue has been reduced by at least 50% continue to pay workers and have not cut salaries by 20% or more will be eligible for monthly wage subsidies of 10,000 NT per employee for 3 months. So there's quite a bit going on here. Obviously, these could potentially have a pretty big impact, but we'll see how that plays out. However, compared to the U.S. giant bill, it seems kind of tame. Moving on to a totally new subject, Hanguoyu likely to be recalled. Survey, says the headline. Nearly 60% of Kaohsiung residents polled said that they would vote to recall Kaohsiung Mayor Hanguoyu, think tank Taiwan Brain Trust, which conducted the survey, said yesterday. A petition to recall the mayor is undergoing a second review, and if it is passed, a vote is to be held on the latter half of June. Of those polled, 69.7% said they would participate in a vote, while 56% that said they would still participate even if there was a sharp increase in the number of COVID-19 infections. Now, that sounds pretty clear that, as they put here in the article, from the results of the survey, it is clear that Kaohsiung residents have made up their mind. Now, moving down a little bit here, DPP Kaohsiung City Councilor Chen Zhizhong, the think tank's chief executive, criticized Han's statements about advantages his administration had brought to the city. So that's right. The chief executive of the think tank that conducted the survey is a Kaohsiung city councilor. So I don't know how accurate this is. All right, now this is big news. Johnny Chiang demands hard line on KMT dissent. This is a big deal. If he pulls this off and if he follows through. So it says here, however, the political performance of some legislators at large has put the party's image to the test once again. Now, these legislator at large, these are the ones that are allocated by the party on the party list vote during the election. There's a certain percentage of the legislature which is set aside for these seats. And Johnny Chiang, the current KMT chair, his predecessor, put in Wu Sz-huai, who has been causing a lot of trouble. If you've been listening recently, you know why. If not, look him up. All right. So their performance has not only been criticized by rival parties and questioned by the public, but it has also disappointed supporters of the KMT, Chiang said. During the party's nomination process for its at-large candidates last year, all of the nominees signed letters promising that if elected, their words and actions would not harm the party's image, he said. The same letter stated that if the nominees were found to have done so, they would submit to disciplinary action and have their nominations revoked in accordance with the party's regulations, he added. The letter shows that, quote, regarding the words, actions, and quality of its legislators at large, the party has the power and duty to restrain and counsel. Chiang said, the KMT is at a critical moment in its reform efforts, and it can no longer afford for the trust of the public to be eroded, he said. Chiang said he would ask the party's reform committee to establish a set of rules for assessing KMT legislators, and the results would be used to determine whether a legislator should lose their party membership. So this is a big deal. Wu Sz-huai is widely distrusted, and he's not terribly popular even with KMT supporters. And there are actual national security concerns because he is widely perceived as being very pro-China, and he's been asking a lot of questions about military things, which are admittedly only public knowledge information from the Ministry of Defense, but it's alarmed a lot of people. If Johnny Chiang carries through with this will say two things. Well, number one, that he's responding to public opinion and trying to rebuild trust in the party. And number two, this is a direct smack at his predecessor. Now, I'll be very curious to see if he follows through on this, particularly if Wu Sz-huai continues to say some of the things he's been saying. All right, finally, cross-straits exchanges questioned. All right, this is Taiwan State Building Party legislator Chen Bo-wei, and he's also known as Sang-Q or 3Q. Now he says here, let me move on here. Okay, Taiwan and China are two separate nations, and cross-strait exchanges can be beneficial and should not be completely cut off, Premier Su Zhensang told lawmakers yesterday amid questions about the role of the Mainland Affairs Council and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Chen Bo-wei said COVID-19 has put the safety of Taiwanese at risk and could tarnish the nation's reputation, as foreigners often confuse Chinese with Taiwanese, quote, since they all have black hair and yellow skin. He asked Mainland Affairs Council Minister Chen Mingtong what the council's responsibilities were, adding that the council should not be promoting cross-strait exchanges, which China could use to assimilate Taiwanese. The council works to ensure that protocols for cross-strait exchanges are observed, the nation's sovereignty is respected, and that the safety needs of Taiwanese are met, the minister said. Chen Bo-wei said that he supports Taiwanese doing business in China, but is against, quote, detrimental exchanges, including Chinese United Front tactics. Chen Mingtong said the government should have faith in its people, who would be able to clearly see through exchanges which is the better government, Taipei or Beijing. He also goes on that the government encourages people to compare China and Taiwan so they can clearly see the face of communist rule. Now, Chen Bo-wei suggested the government implement defensive democracy by testing Chinese applying to visit Taiwan, on their understanding of the Anti-Infiltration Act and the differences between the two nations' political systems, just as the U.S. government tests prospective immigrants. Now, he's talking about here, according to this article at least, that these are people who plan to visit. That seems maybe a little excessive, but moving on. Chen Mingtong said he respected the idea, but the Legislative Yuan would need to pass laws to allow such a move. Chen Bo-wei suggested that Hong Kongers be allowed to serve as recruits in the Republic of China military, and they could boost the nation's working age population. Hong Kong is a younger society than Taiwan, and its people hate the Chinese more than Taiwanese do, he said. Su replied that the government cares deeply about the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong, but recruiting Hong Kongers for the military would require prudence. Interestingly, Han Guoyu, over the Kaohsiung mayor, over on the KMT side, he suggested setting up a Hong Kong village to attract Hong Kongers. So this idea seems to be floating around in various forms across the political spectrum. The news is ongoing, so be sure to tune in tomorrow. The website is still undergoing renovations, but check back. It should be up soon.
This has been brought to you by the Taiwan Report. For more content like this, become our patron at report.tw.
哎呦，就是那个台湾狗啦，最喜欢我的台湾狗了。